Welcome to the Wealthy Woman podcast with me, your host, Rebecca Barr, aka the Femalepreneur Coach. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, the best-selling author of The Good Girl's Guide to Money Making, and the go-to money mindset mentor for heart-centered, results-driven women in business who are here to do big things. Listen and subscribe for transformational tips, insights, and practical strategies to transform your relationship with money, heal financial trauma, and become a vibrational match to millions. Plus, I will be showcasing the inspiring stories of other incredibly successful wealthy women and their journey to financial freedom and living life on their own terms. Because when good women make good money, the world becomes a better place and everyone wins when you do. Let's go, ladies. Hey Queens, thank you so much for joining me for my very first episode of the Wealthy Woman podcast. I am so excited to relaunch my podcast with a bit of a bang. It's something that's been on my heart for a little while now, ever since I wrote my book, The Good Girl's Guide to Money Making, and just getting really focused on essentially what it is that I want to talk about, and that is always money, because money is just a reflection of what we feel we are worthy of receiving. And again, as much as I love to speak to women in business specifically about money and support them with the strategies to scale their business, essentially it is just women that I want to work with. And like I say, that relationship with money is symbolic of all areas of life, of what you are feel you are worthy and safe to receive. So it's bigger than just the money, it's bigger than just the business strategy. And I just wanted an opportunity to really refine my message and speak solely about this topic. So my podcast has been going for probably, I think, two or 3 years now. I've recorded hundreds of episodes that will teach you more of the individual business growth strategies and all the things. So this is just an extension of that, and definitely something that can complement what's already on there. And I know that I've got some really incredible listeners and women that have been in my journey in my world for a really long time. So I don't want to discount those. I don't want to say, oh, this is new, improved, better. It's just more focused. And that's the reality, right? As we get into different seasons of business, that's typically what you find will happen. You'll either pivot entirely and you'll move into new opportunities for growth and new topic areas, or you'll just continually refine and refine and refine your message. And that's what this is for me. So I'm super excited to share this initial episode, which is going to be more of a recap as I move through like the new episodes that are coming up. I'll definitely be sharing just recapping all of the basics when it comes to transforming your relationship. What do you actually need to know? What steps do you need to take? What areas do you need to focus on? And obviously providing the tools and the resources to support you with that work. So I'm super excited for that. And so let's get into it. So as a recap though, what I wanted to do was share with you my journey to wealth consciousness and really being a vibrational match to millions, essentially, because it wasn't a linear rags to riches story like a lot of money mentors are. And I think it's important to share this message that actually, you know, sometimes it takes a minute to learn the lesson. Sometimes you do go backwards before you go forwards. Sometimes you do go sideways, and that was definitely my experience. So for anybody who isn't familiar, if you haven't read my book, obviously make sure that you go and buy it because it's amazing. It's available on Amazon. I've got incredible reviews, and I'm just about to record the audio version, the Audible version. So I'm super excited for that. There'll be a few little updates and edits. But essentially everything that is in there is absolute gold and a really great place to start. I think when you're not quite ready to invest in all the things, the programs, the memberships. However, I have got a money mindset, a wealth activation membership that I'm launching at the moment. It's called the Wealthy Woman membership, and it's essentially just an incredible program to help do this work at the next level and for you to be supported by me for the next 12 months. So if you are interested, I'll pop the details in the show notes. It's at an incredibly low price right now because I just want to get out there and share the message. I'm writing my second book at the moment, which is again like another extension of the first book. And the more women that I get into my world, the more women that I support to get results, the more that I can then really pour into that book also and create these incredible resources for you guys. But essentially my journey was, when I was very young, so around 4 years old, my dad passed away. which left me and my mum and my sister at the time in a really precarious position financially. We didn't have any safety or assurances that we would be okay. And we actually lost our home that we had at that time, which was the naval quarters, because my dad was in the Navy. And I remember us having to go and move in with my granddad, I think, in like it was a really terrible apartment. And it was actually called the Concrete Jungle. So that kind of gives you an indication. We've gone from a lovely family home in a really supportive naval based community that to then living on like a really incredibly rough council estate. And that was kind of our experience. Then obviously when my dad's life insurance money, I believe, came in, we had a bit of a different reality. And I remember us moving on to like nicer houses, new cars. I think we had a holiday. And what was very apparent to me is that we were always in feast and famine cycles, because then it would be like downsizing, selling the car, selling the house, and we would be continually moving around. Um, and, I look back on it now with so much compassion and grace for that journey. But then what happened was by the age of like 12 to 13, we lost our home again after my stepdad left. And essentially, I think, well, they always say there's three sides to every story. I never know, because my mum sadly passed since, so I can't ask her any follow-on questions. But I believe that, there was an element of like my stepdad was essentially like defrauding her, and, wasn't with her for the right reasons, probably only because she had money. And once the money had gone, so was he. So we lost our home. It was repossessed when I was in my early teens. I was then sent off to different family members to avoid having to spend too much time in the hostel that we replaced. I had younger siblings as well, so my mum was kind of busy looking after those. But where I was at high school, I think there was family members that reached out because they didn't want me to have to live with that shame and that stigma attached. So it was all from a very well-meaning place, which I'm so grateful for. But obviously, taking on another child is very much a big commitment, and I don't think that they necessarily went into it with their eyes wide open. And essentially I would just continually keep getting moved on, basically. And eventually at 18, I moved into my own place, and uh, then got my own mortgage at 18, which was an incredible achievement. But my whole philosophy at that point was just to outrun the devil, outwork the devil, and just literally kill myself, trying to do all the things, work all the hours. Obviously, this was long before social media and being able to build a side hustle online. So all I had to give was my time and energy, and I literally worked like 9 to 5 in an office job. I then went at the weekends. I used to do a pub job. I used to be a carer at the weekends, which would mean that I would work before my job in the morning. I would then do like evening calls after my work. And before that, I was also working in a call center. And then I would literally take the phones home with me and work through the nights, just be available on call, and essentially hustled my way to getting my first property with a partner at the time. From there, I recognized that there were opportunities within the house that we bought. There was a lot of equity because it was absolutely awful. And again, like I was just continually reinforcing this message of not being worthy of anything nice. Like our house was absolutely atrocious. We used to get slugs in the kitchen. It was completely run down. And yet I knew to take the money out of that property once we'd done a little bit of work, and then move it on to another investment. But I would never really allow us to invest in our home, because it was always about making more money, trying to find the next deal, trying to find the next property. And because I was just so scared, and also not willing to invest in my home and in me and up leveling my day-to-day experience. It was always like, well, I need to make more money because this could be taken away. And that was kind of the constant state of fear that I lived in. And eventually it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when that partnership then went sideways and I didn't want to be with that person anymore at 25, although we'd amassed a 7-figure property empire at that time, I still didn't feel worthy or capable, or that I had anything to do with that result, which, is crazy now, because I look back as a 41-year-old woman who's kind of done the work and seen where I was self-sabotaging my own success. And I can see that absolutely those properties never would have happened without me. Like, my partner was not ambitious at all. He thought, if anything, he dragged his heels on those deals because he just thought I was trying to make our lives harder. He definitely didn't see the vision. He wasn't inspired or motivated. He, just made it so incredibly difficult for me to enjoy any of that journey. And that's ultimately why we didn't end up together. And yeah, and still I walked away from all of that money. I just took enough to get a little deposit on a house with myself and some friends. And again, that immediately then went into negative equity, by the way. So I was then stuck with this house. My housemates moved out. I was like the last man standing. I was then working 2 jobs at that point just to try and make everything work. I was trying for a baby, eventually got my baby, and got pregnant, and still felt just absolutely terrified to give up my second job and just rely on one income. So I remember working right up until I was 6 months pregnant with her, as a carer, which is quite a physical job, on top of another job that I'm trying to do, traveling into London, doing all the things, and just so much hardship, so much sacrifice, so much just pain around money and just trying to survive at that point, really, let alone create legacy, create wealth. Eventually, I did then become an entrepreneur, more from a place of necessity. I was a single mum with 3 kids at that time. Obviously, I've moved on quite a bit. Did have a successful career, thought that I had kind of cracked it in the sense that I had my own house, had my own car, had a great job. And then what eventually happened was that my mum was helping me to look after my children because the cost of childcare, like, don't even get me started, was crazy. And then I went to go and drop the kids off one morning, and she was super sick. She'd had a stroke. She suddenly couldn't have the kids anymore. It was quite evident that she wasn't going to be able to manage that responsibility any further, and only one of my children was actually in full-time education. So the other 2 were still at nursery. Or not even at nursery, because they'd never even been. They didn't know. They were with my mum. So I had a bit of a decision to make. And I always think that the universe knows better than we do. And I'd always had this inner knowing that my corporate job was not for me. I worked in HR. It was very stuffy, obviously very corporate, very political. And I've just never really fit the mold of what everybody else wanted me to be. Like, I would be overly invested and emotional when it came to my clients. I really got to learn the businesses and felt like an absolute champion of the people that were there, the talent that was growing within. And actually, your role in HR is to kind of just be, mitigate the risk to the business. So it never really sat well with me anyway. I tried to launch like little businesses and side hustles when on maternity leave with my other kids, but never really had the confidence, the conviction, or the expertise to really put myself out there. And obviously, as a single parent, I never really had that luxury either of just seeing and giving things a go and learning as I went. It was always so much pressure when it came to money, and it has been my whole life. Like, I've been working a full-time job since I was 15, doing my exams at school because I was financially dependent on myself. I had rent and things to pay at that age, had nobody looking after me. So it's never really been a safe space for me to just go off and try things as such. That's one of the great things now, is that I've built enough of a buffer in my business that I can do that. I can go try things. If it doesn't work, that's absolutely fine. I can approach it with a sense of curiosity, come back to it. And I always encourage my clients, I'm not a mentor that will tell you to go all in on your business and burn the bridges, because I think that's very damaging to your nervous system. To have that level of pressure on your business from the outset to provide an income is very stressful, and it's really damaging to your growth. It doesn't allow you to really, create what you want to create. You're just constantly under pressure and under the gun from day one, which is not a good place to create from. So that was kind of it for me, in the sense that I had to literally, I wasn't employable. I went back to my job and said, look, my mum's not well. Is there any chance I could do compressed hours? I could do flexible working. Can I work from home? And obviously this was a long time before COVID. And the answer was no. You're either in or you're out. And if you're, if you can't be here and fully show up and commit, then you're no good to us. And that was really, really hard for me. It was, another experience of women kind of really shunning me, which has happened many times over my lives, where I've been completely shit on, to be honest, by women, abandoned by my tribe, cast out, not accepted, not liked, bullied, all of the things. I've never had great experiences with women until I started to really step into my power and create my own communities. That's when I've really formed those incredible connections, but that's kind of a side note. So my only choice was to sell my house, buy my first business. I had to relocate me and my young family to the other side of the M25, which felt like the other side of the world, because it was in a place that I'd never even stepped foot in before. I didn't even know where this place was. It felt like a million miles away from everything that I knew. But sometimes that's good. Getting out of your environment is so powerful. And it's why I love to create transformational events for my clients. I've got a retreat in California in September. And it truly does come from a place of not what can I sell, but it's like every woman needs to give themselves permission to have this moment, to get outside of their daily habits, thought patterns, and routines, and just see what comes up for them in that environment with essentially like a blank slate. And that's what happened for me, and I'm so grateful for it. It felt so scary at the time. Nobody supported me. Everybody thought I was an idiot. All of those kind of were on your head, be it I've told you, don't come crying to me type thing, even though I didn't have a backup plan, by the way. So they weren't offering me any alternative solutions. It was just like, we're not supporting you, off you go. So that was really fun to start my business journey from that prospect with so much pressure on my shoulders. And I've always felt that pressure anyway, having kids, because they're little people and beings that you are totally responsible for shaping. Oh my God, who gave me that responsibility? Like, that's always weighed on me. But essentially my business was a bit of a baptism of fire. I thought I'd bought a really established high turnover business already, and essentially I'd bought an absolute doozy that wasn't performing in any sense of the way. The woman must have seen me coming. Another woman who literally took advantage of my situation, oversold me a business that wasn't making money, and immediately was in debt from like day one, because it was VAT registered, and just literally some of the staff left. It was just sabotage central from the previous owner, the current staff who didn't respect me. It was a barbershop, so again, no business owning a barbershop, owning a barbershop, because I'd never been in one before. So it was just really interesting times. And throughout that journey, I obviously turned it around. I started making money in the business. I eventually built it to an award-winning success, incredible brand partnerships, built a really great brand and profile and presence in that industry, and made it the biggest barbershop in Kingston, and just did so much more. Use that then as a platform to launch other businesses, as I'd done with my property before, where I'd bought the first house and then used that as a platform to leverage to buy others. I did the same with this business, so I launched other businesses off the back of it. And I think I've always had that sense of getting the most bang for your buck, energetically, time wise, money, all of the things. So that's just always been something that's come very naturally to me. But yeah, so it was all going really, really well, but almost too well. And the thing with money mindset is it's never one and done. Like I say, my levels of self-worth and confidence were increasing, but they weren't matching the income that I was receiving. So what was then happening is like a leaky bucket at the other end. I was essentially spending the money like I stole it, and really allowing other people to take advantage of that situation. People coming in and demanding day rates that were well above the industry average, because they knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's the thing, like, when you play your cards so openly and vulnerably, there will always be people that will take advantage of that, with from a place of fear and lack in their own in themselves. Essentially, I don't blame them. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And that's the way that they needed to hustle to get an extra 10-20 pounds a day for themselves. So it is what it is. That was my bad for not knowing what I didn't know. And it was only until I had an audit, a 3-day in-person audit from HMRC. They came and sat in my shop. I was pregnant at the time, albeit that pregnancy didn't work out, but super nauseous, height of summer. It was absolute torture, just being basically pulled over the coals by HMRC around, why are you spending this? Why are you doing this? And having to justify yourself in that way really was triggering for me. I've been in really disempowering relationships, especially from childhood. Lots of abusive situations that happened when I was young. So I felt very vilified, and having to like justify every decision that I made was really quite confronting and really quite traumatic. And it was only afterwards that my accountant essentially pulled me aside. And I'll be forever grateful for this conversation. But he said, you know, I've managed to get us out of all of these expenses for the staff and all the things that you've reinvested in the business. But I have to ask the question, like, why are you doing this? Do you know how much money you're wasting and throwing away in your business just through like incentivizing your staff, like paying commissions and bonuses that you don't need to pay, overly generous day rates that aren't custom and practice, paying for coffees and dinners out, and you know, all of these brands that they wanted to bring into the business, like you're allowing them to literally shape every decision in your business. Like, why is that happening? And essentially what I realized was I was asking for them to love me, you know, love me, like me, be loyal to me, all of the things that other people had essentially like not provided me with when I was younger, even my own parents when I was young. And it really highlighted to me, therefore, then how that had played out in my adult relationships, you know, the scraps that I was willing to accept from emotionally unavailable partners who really didn't give a shit about me. That I was accepting such a low benchmark because that had been my experience my whole life, that I wasn't worthy, that people didn't care. And the only value I bring to the table is what other people can take from me. And that really started this journey for me into money mindset. I already had a psychology background from my HR career, but just took everything up a notch. Then when I started going out into the world and networking and organically growing my coaching business as a side hustle to my main business, helping other women, supporting them through like my local college, university, chamber of commerce, I connected the dots on, actually, this isn't just a me problem. This is just a women problem. Like, there's so many ways in which we are disadvantaged in making money, holding money, receiving money, feeling worthy of that money, and then not self-sabotaging on the other end of it. There's so many ways that we are just not set up to win as business owners or as women. And it really sent me down a rabbit hole. It's why now, when it comes to money mindset, there are so many different layers that I use with my clients. You know, we're implementing strategies at an energetic level, at a psychological level, at a physical level, um, at an energetics level. It's so many different things. As women, we're multifaceted beings. It's never just one thing that is why something isn't working or manifesting for you. It's all of the things. Sometimes it is a strategy thing. Sometimes it is you know, it's a unconscious belief system that needs to be brought into alignment with what you want so that it feels safe to receive it. So that is kind of the work that I did, and then that I also share with my clients now. And that's how I've now managed to get to a point where I can hold money and be comfortable with overflow and abundance, and equally have trust in myself to make investments in my business. I'm not hoarding this money. I'm not holding on to it. I know that it needs to be reinvested and spent, and everything is energy and all of the things. So I am super excited to share that with you exclusively within this podcast series. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. I'm also going to be videoing the sessions and popping those up onto YouTube. I'd love for you to come and join me over there. That's where there's lots of incredible resources, follow-on resources that are only going to complement and help you to integrate what you're learning in this podcast series. But I'm super excited. This is just the first episode. I wanted to give you an overview of my journey to wealth consciousness so that I could become a vibrational match for millions again without the self-sabotage, so that, you know, we can all be in a really great place. Because here's the thing, when good women make good money, the world becomes a better place, and that's the reality. The more the incredible women like you, heart-led women in business who are here to try and make the world a better place, the more that you make great money, the more that you pay it forwards. Like, it's statistically shown and proven that women are more likely to invest in worthy causes. We're more likely to pay it forward to other women and just continue the flow of money in really positive ways. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Please let me know in the show notes what your takeaways are. Hopefully, if you didn't know, now you know me a little bit better and my connection to this work, and I'll pop all of the details and the ways that I can support you further in the show notes.